Order. I call the honourable member for Casey.
Well, thank you, Deputy Speaker. And you look at the wording of this matter of public importance. You hear from the Shadow Treasurer, the Leader of the Opposition. For those of us on this side of the House, we look at those former members of the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd governments, and I've got to say it's as competitive as an Olympic 100-metre final. It really is, for all the wrong reasons, but it is a photo finish as to who has the worst policy record. And I mean, we sat here during the interrupted question time thinking, who could have penned this matter of public importance? Matter of public importance that is based on the premise that the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd governments made the right choices and had the right priorities for Australia. Well, you can argue with us, but don't argue with the outcome of the election, which was an endorsement of the choices and the priorities that members on this side are pursuing so that we can restore what Labor damaged or destroyed. Now, for the Shadow Treasurer to stand here and lecture this side of the House on budget ethics, budget honesty, budget competence is absolutely astounding. But as I've said before, they are nothing if not unembarrassable. I mean, the member for Lilley rightly cops a lot of opprobrium from this side of the House. He is easily the worst Treasurer in our nation's history. I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly. I say that after reflecting even on the Whitlam government treasurers. Now, they might have been as bad. He had longer to do more damage, and damage he did. And now we have this Labor Party, as the Prime Minister said, here in the House, watching the government on behalf of the Australian people clean up the mess they caused. We have to deal with Labor's chaos, and they complain about the clean-up. It is absolutely unbelievable. But particularly for the Shadow Treasurer, who began back in 2007 as the Assistant Treasurer, lecturing on policy competence. His first 3 acts were Fuel Watch, and it was a full watch, grocery choice, and the employee share scheme debacle. I mean, the Assistant Treasurer, the shocker of employee share schemes, and as I said, the fool of Fuel Watch, then goes on to be cap off in his last months in the Rudd government again as Treasurer. And what's he going to be remembered for from that campaign? For misleading and misrepresenting Treasury costings documents that the Treasury themselves, together with the Department of Finance, in an unprecedented move in an election campaign, belled the cat on the Shadow Treasurer. And then you look at what happened with the budget. And the previous Speaker, and no doubt next speakers on this side, will go through again, as we should go through, Labor's dramatic fiscal failure. Absolutely unbelievable. But for the Shadow Treasurer to be lecturing, he talked about the Reserve Bank replenishment. He didn't talk about the Reserve Bank Reserve Fund. I mean, you only need to look at the words of the Governor of the Reserve Bank, and I know my friend and colleague, the member for Higgins, on the Economics Committee, asked many of the questions on this very point. I mean, it requires a certain human capacity to ignore the truth with a straight face, to actually ignore documents signed off by the Reserve Bank Governor. I mean, this is a special skill that those opposite have. Now, I don't know whether they go to a factory to learn this skill, whether they're programmed with this skill, but I mean, they have this great capacity. To look people in the eye and say, Collingwood won last year's grand final. I mean, they just say it with such conviction. But the Reserve Bank Governor, it's in black and white, as the member for Higgins will outline. The Reserve Bank Governor said, don't take a dividend. Don't take a dividend. Don't run down the Reserve Bank Reserve Fund. And he's only the Reserve Bank Governor. I mean, what would he know? But it's there in black and white. He wrote to the Treasurer saying, don't do it. And then they mount some argument that the Reserve Bank Reserve Fund shouldn't be replenished. I mean, Deputy Speaker, This is the last sitting day before the budget, and what Labor have demonstrated is they are just as fiscally incompetent as they were 6 months ago.